Quilts tell a story regardless if there's, a pictorial image, because the fabric that is chosen oftentimes is sentimental fabric. Every piece of fabric that somebody has handled or worn and it goes into a scrap quilt then becomes part of this really unifying energy. I work totally on emotion and feelings. But if you listen to what people tell you, then there'll be a little, like a breadcrumb for the next place to go. So it's all the little breadcrumbs.
So,
whoa! So this is it.
Yeah, I tend to do it in 2D first, and then we'll go to 3D. I feel very fortunate that she's trusted me to put on this show. She's talked about seeing all of her work and all of the quilts that she's made over these years as almost her children. I think Tina would like to think that everyone's energy, every hand that they've passed through has sort of become part of those quilts.
When you stand in front of any of these pieces, there is a story, there's a teaching. Oral history, how important is oral history and how do you keep oral history intact? You use an object to be able to contain that story. So you tell the story over and over again, and then they pass down the object. That's the whole philosophy. Whatever it is that you're doing with this fabric, one way or the other, we all are feeling the same thing. Whether or not the outcome is like a piece of art or fabulous, it's yours. This one is basically just like an embrace. It's just like a marriage quilt where the two figures come together and become one. So it is a story of some sort. I kind of take it to a different level because I'm like trying to work something through. So it's like my own personal meditation, my own personal, research. This is a South Carolina quilt too. This one right here also is the one with the praise house in it. So that came directly from here. Time marches on. So somebody put a new bench in there, or it's a bench that has been cleaned up.
And what was the piece that...
It's called Raise Your Hand.
Raise Your Hand. I've never seen a quilt maker use photography in the way that Tina uses it. So in the case of a work like Raise Your Hands, she's literally quilted a photograph in addition to photo transfers, right? So it's two different types of photography and photographic medium being incorporated into the quilt.
I've got tons and tons of photographs that I've taken over the years. Then my husband volunteered for the Pittsburgh Courier for the archives. So it's like I just have tons and tons of access to materials to use. I love to go to secondhand stores and buy Shetskis and stuff. I buy button boxes. My grandmother was like a flashy dancer, a dresser for church. And I just remember her buying junk jewelry. So everything came from like scrapping and collecting and using what you have because you can make something out of nothing. I needed to distinguish what it was I was doing because I was making it up as I went along. And it wasn't like the traditional quilts that have rules and regulations that are there that distinguish whether or not the quilt is good and whether or not the binding's right and all of those things. So I really didn't want to be confined to those rules.
Look at Tina's experience in South Carolina. That informed her work in very direct ways. So her daughter lived there in the early 2000s, which is the first time that she was visiting. She was taking photographs of praise houses. She was taking photographs of Penn Center and things like that and incorporating it into her work back in Pittsburgh.
When I came to St. Helena Island, I was just blown away by it because I kind of was in search of it and didn't know where to go to find it. For me, I needed to go find something, because how can you sit at the table with a large group of people and talk about, history and lineage and all of that, and you've got nothing to say? There has to be something to say. So there it is. Well, I need you to help me to regain my memory. Okay. My daughter lived on the island in 2002 to 2007. And I came here because I make story quilts. So each quilt is a memory board with things to touch, to remember, to tell the stories. And I'm an adult learner, learning about my culture. Okay. And this was the culture I needed to know about. I just want to put this story back together again, because every time I learn something new, I create another quilt. This is a very special place here, and everybody's going to have their opinion about what it is that South Carolina means. I choose to believe that this is our ancestral home, because it is.
People have emotional responses to place. You sometimes will walk through a place and feel like you get this strange feeling like, oh, I've been here before, or something like that. And that, I think Tina would look at as sort of an ancestral memory.
The ancestral memory, I think, is always there for all of us to access. Any place that you are, we all have ancestors, and that energy of those ancestors is there. Some people access it, some people ignore it. In this series here with these silkscreen children, these are from the or up, O-A-R up, O-R down, meaning making decisions and trying to decide whether or not you're going to go with the flow, or are you going to do your direct engagement and try to guide your ship. So it's about the crossroads decision-making, or up or down decision-making. But then when you see these elliptical imagery, you feel that these people have left the earth and going into more of a celestial way of being and seeing things. And I have like a canoe down here, and there's a snake, which all of the things that are in the quilt help to support the story. One of the things that I started when I came down to St. Helens Island years ago was kind of looking for connections from the island to where we are. Pittsburgh is a point, it's water-oriented, and it has undertones of the indigenous. And those are all kind of like covered up, and it's kind of sleepy, and it's not tangible.
You could read her quilts in the same way that you could read a Renaissance painting, where every motif, every piece of fabric, every symbol has a very explicit meaning to the viewer, in the same way that a biblical scene in a Renaissance painting would, or in the same way that a bird would, a goldfinch. In some ways, you can look at Tina's work at this didactic level, where you're reading something metaphorically, and this is what made her work such a great teaching tool for students, is that you could always tell a story with these quilts through time and place.
The Silver Lake, this is completely gone. It's completely paved over. There are huge archways over top of it, which are on the front of the quilt. And unless you knew that it was there, you would never think that there was a lake under there. So Silver Lake used to be down Washington Boulevard. It was kind of like a park with a little lake on it where people picnicked, but then it was clogged up. They paved over it, and then now there's just a car wash just there. But I'm interested in what we cover up, time and place, and knowing what was there before we came in and modernized it. And where we're standing now, there was also a little pond that was here as well. And now it's a parking lot. So the question is, where is the water going?
When I was thinking about Tina's work and my interactions with it and my understandings of it, so much of it is tied to these ideas of legacies and how we tell these stories and who gets to tell their stories and how they're written down and how they're kept. And and what that looks like and what that means to have that.
We just want to go up and see this real work, which is basically what I use to do the medallion. This is the symbol you want to look at. This is the symbol for Sankofa, which means you have the knowledge of the past to move on into the future.
When someone asks me about something that happened, or this artist or that, I know I can pick up the phone and call Tina. I think at one point, Tina's basement was our storage unit. So we had all of our records down there and all of our old catalogs, but she kept all of them. You know, that idea of this is worth preserving and this is worth protecting. And now those archives are elsewhere and accessed by the public, and people come and do research because of someone like Tina protecting that legacy.
This is Pittsburgh. This is old Pittsburgh, and this is what it looks like on the south side. Like really country. All of this in the foreground is like one of the flattest areas in Pittsburgh, and that's Homewood Rushton, is in the East End. So we're almost at the edge of it. It's like 4 more blocks up. A lot of the property has kind of been depleted, so there's a lot of open land. Everybody needs to have hope that the day could be better, even if they have to build it in their mind first. It starts in the heart, and then it goes to the mind, and then you manifest. And I think that I've lived long enough now to see the manifestation of the development of this community. A lot of my work is about that. It's taking the everyday and developing into the possibilities. We're here because Matt is the best.
I'm one of the founders, and I also am a volunteer who helps run the space. But mostly when I'm here, just here to do my own projects, which in this case is making these prints of Tina's work that she then uses as material for collage.
Oh, nice.
I've been printing for a long time now, maybe 9 or so years professionally. Done a lot of printing for different artists over the years, and I've always really liked just like collaborating with different artists, almost more than working on stuff for myself. It's just exciting to see people's processes.
I really like this combination of the grass and the cotton,
Yeah.
you know, and I now have a photograph of the indigo plant.
Okay.
So that's another thing that we can, because indigo is really big. I traveled to South Carolina, to Penn Center, and this is one of the images that we took, and you know, it's very strong graphically, and I've die cut it and, you know, used it, and it has a lot of movement and texture. And so I don't have to work as hard to get that depth of field on the piece with the fine work that you do. So it was like, yes.
So this whole image is an image on the beach, a photograph that you took.
In the early 2000s, and this is what we took when I was down. This is the palmetto plant again. So there's 2 layers. It is the layer of the photograph of the plant that Pool Proof did, and he did this on organza, and then I hand stamped the birds on, because I have my this is just plain old ink, so stamp pads. So I stamped this on. There's more in there, but they kind of disappeared.
An interesting thing about her process is that she will work over a quilt for so long, and as the composition progresses, she will cover up different components, different fabrics, different motifs, and things like that.
I covered up quite a bit of stuff, but it's still there. And I think that's kind of the thing about the work in general, is that it has like quilts underneath quilts. And I don't mind sacrificing.
It's about knowing that they're there, and it's about uncovering those things again for herself and for her own experience, but also for the viewer.
This is going to be the I think like the 4th layer, because there is the silk georgette that was anchored down first with iridescent threads, and then digitally printed fabrics were applied in on top of that. And then there is a layer of silk organza over top of it, and then this piece right here, which is just domestic rayon. So somebody asked me, well, don't you get upset when you've done all that work and then you're covering it up? And really, no, because the work was done for me. It's my process, it's my anchoring. And if some of it is not shown, it's okay, because, you know, sometimes you don't want everything that you do to be seen. Ghana has the ending symbols, and it is the philosophy that I tried to adopt, which is you have to learn from the past before you can move into the future. You'll see that there is a thread that goes through almost every quilt that is repetitive. And it started with the harvest, with the bottom of the slave ship, with those iconic figures, or then there's the Sankofa that's there. And now they're very complicated, you know, because I've got like a larger vocabulary. There's so many layers of stitching in this work. Well, I guess we're not going to do any more quilting because I just broke my needle. And there was only one to have. So we're done.